How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
My fellow Americans, conversationalists across the fruited plain, I am delighted to have you with me. It's Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425. If you would like to be on the program, Kamala Harris went on CNN last night with Anderson Cooper. And they had a town hall. Now, I do have to say, hilariously, they claimed it was undecided independent Republican and Democratic voters. And one of the undecided voters was a female political science professor at a college. The only reason that woman is undecided is she can't decide to vote Soviet communist or Chinese communist. She's trying to make her mind. Jill Stein, Cornel West, or Kamala Harris. She ain't voting for Trump, I assure you. And what Kamala Harris managed to do last night was to lose a debate being the only candidate on the stage.
That you did acknowledge.
She just was not good at answering people's questions at the debate. She had a real hard time in any way, shape, or form being able to talk to people. You know, she had Anderson Cooper there trying to guide her through these questions, and it wasn't good. Kamala Harris had a very hard time engaging with people on that debate stage. Listen, I criticized her yesterday for not running aggressively. She didn't do any events. She sent Tim Walz to a closed-door event in Kentucky, and she herself didn't do anything yesterday. What Harris clearly was doing was trying to prep. Now, I want to go back to her time in the Senate when she ran for president and for her first 2 years in office as vice president. There was an ongoing, regular, and reliable criticism about Kamala Harris, and it was that she didn't do the prep. She didn't do the work. So here's what happens. When you're a presidential candidate or you are in elected office, your staff prepare binders. And these binders amount to your briefing papers, and they cover all the key issues. And your job is to read the digestible nuggets that those people have prepared for you. That's your job. You may not want to do it, but that's your job. Your job as a candidate is to be engaged as a candidate, reading the briefing papers provided to you by a class of people whose job is to make you look good. And if you don't do the work, if you don't do the research, if you don't do the prep, you're going to fail. And she had a reputation of not doing the work. She had a reputation of not doing the homework. She had a reputation of not doing what she needed to do to win. And my suspicion is that Kamala Harris sat out the campaign trail so that she could do the work and read the prep and study. And it didn't do her any good.
I appreciate that you did acknowledge that we are a country that is faced with problems and issues. With the Supreme Court being plagued with issues, would you be in favor of expanding the court to, say, 12, so each justice has only one circuit court other than Chief Justice to assist in making judgments more balanced?
Well, to your point, there is no question that the American people increasingly are losing confidence in the Supreme Court. And in large part because of the behavior of certain members of that court and because of certain rulings, including the Dobbs decision and taking away a precedent that had been in place for 50 years, protecting a woman's right to make decisions about her own body. So I do believe that there should be some kind of reform of the court, and we can study what that actually looks like. But I do believe. But again, let's just, while you raise the point of the court, understand that, again, in 13 days, the American people will decide who is the next president of the United States. In 13 days, you will decide who is sitting in the Oval Office on January 20th. And on one hand, you have in Donald Trump someone who has increasingly proved himself to be unstable and who, as we have established and the people close to him have established, he is unfit to serve.
I'm sorry, but when that becomes your closing persuasive argument that he's unfit to serve and you've covered up a dementia patient for 3 years, it's not a persuasive case. And then there was this.
That's right.
But if you're earning $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 under your plan, there's a good chance your taxes go up.
We can't have this conversation without knowing it's a very complicated situation, right? If you're talking about a small business owner, I'm going to cut taxes for small businesses, right? Because I know that they need the overhead, the money that they need for overhead to actually benefit the growth of their business, which benefits our economy as a whole.
She can't have this conversation about taxes. It's too complicated to have with Anderson Cooper a conversation on tax cuts.
That's a big leap. We don't have that yet. If that's not possible to codify it in the House, what do you do?
I think we need to take a look at the filibuster, to be honest with you. But the reality of it is this. Let's talk about how we got here. When Donald Trump was president, he hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did as he intended. And now in 20 states, we have Trump abortion bans that include punishing healthcare providers, doctors and nurses. In Texas, do you know they provide for prison for life? For a healthcare provider for doing the job that they believe is in the best interest of their patient? Laws, Trump abortion bans, some that make no exception even for rape or incest.
These are her persuasive cases, folks. But, you know, what was so interesting to me is Anderson Cooper had this moment where he just asked her about immigration, and she went so far off the rails. Just listen to this full exchange. I got the full clip here. I don't want to take it out of context.
For citizenship. And that includes requiring people, hardworking people, to earn citizenship and do it in a comprehensive, humane, and orderly manner.
Let me ask you about that. I mean, you talk about the bill that Donald Trump quashed. That was in 2024. You talk about the bill he tried to get passed in 2021. That wasn't able to get passed. 2022, 2023, there were record border crossings. Your administration took hundreds of executive actions. It didn't stem the flow. Numbers kept going up. Finally, in 2024, just in June, 3 weeks before the first presidential debate with Joe Biden, you institute executive actions that had a dramatic impact, really shut down people crossing over. Why didn't your administration do that in 2022, 2023?
First of all, you're exactly right, Anderson. And as of today, we have cut the flow of immigration by over half. In fact, the numbers I saw most recently, illegal immigration
But if
is
it was
low.
that easy with that executive action, why not do it in 2022, 2023?
Because we were working with Congress and hoping that actually we could have a long-term fix to the problem instead of a short-term fix.
You couldn't have done one and both at the same time?
Well, here's the thing. We have to understand that ultimately this problem is going to be fixed through congressional action. Congress has the authority and the purse. I hate to use D.C. terms, but literally they write the checks. Part of the issue is in order to really fix the problem at the border. I was just at the border recently talking with border agents. You know what they talk about? Yes, they are overwhelmed. They're working around the clock. And the other thing that they talk to me about, We need more judges down there to deal with asylum claims.
It goes on for a little while, but first of all, Congress, doesn't write checks. Congress authorizes the spending. It's the executive branch that writes the checks. Secondly, she couldn't answer Anderson Cooper's question. She couldn't answer it. She rambled and she dodged and she just couldn't do it.
In funding for the border wall, that's something Republicans wanted. That was part of the compromise. Under Donald Trump, you criticized the wall more than 50 times. You called it stupid, useless, and a medieval vanity project. Is a border wall stupid?
Well, let's talk about Donald Trump and that border wall. So remember, Donald Trump said Mexico would pay for it? Come on, they didn't. How much of that wall did he build? I think the last number I saw was about 2%. And then when it came time for him to do a photo op, you know where he did it? In the part of the wall that President Obama built.
But you're agreeing to a bill that would earmark $650 million to continue building that wall.
I pledge that I am going to bring forward that bipartisan bill to further strengthen and secure our border. Yes, I am. And I'm going to work across the aisle to pass a comprehensive bill that deals with a broken immigration system. I think Jackson's question, part of it was to acknowledge that America has always had migration, but there needs to be a legal process for it. People have to earn it. And that's the point that I think is the most important point that can be made, which is we need a president who is grounded in common sense and practical outcomes. Like, let's just fix this thing. Let's just fix it. Why is there any ideological perspective on it? Let's just fix the problem.
To fix the problem, you're doing this compromise bill. It does call for $650 million that was earmarked under Trump to actually still go to build the wall.
I am not afraid of good ideas where they occur.
So you don't think it's stupid anymore?
I think what he did and how he did it did not make much sense because
she blocked it at the time. So forget my take. Forget my take. Over to you, Jake Tapper.
It's less than 2 weeks from the election. A lot of tough questions for the vice president there. It seemed as though the voters were divided into three basic groups. Liberals who had not heard enough from her, progressives worried that she was not progressive enough, and Republicans who are wary of Donald Trump and wanting to hear more from the vice president. She focused a lot more on Donald Trump, I think it's fair to say, than she did on many specifics in terms of what she would do as president. But she did go into some of her plans for small businesses and the like. Of course, with only 13 days to go, and Trump and Harris fighting over these last few undecided voters, and in fact trying to get undecided voters to even vote. We'll see whether or not she achieved what she needed to achieve this evening.
And Dana Bash.
To close the deal. They're not sure she did that. And, some people have asked, is she being held to a different standard? Maybe. But that's maybe the world that she's living in. And on the question of who she is, people are understanding that a little bit more. But what she will do, the question about her legislative priorities, name one, there wasn't one.
And finally, last word here to David Axelrod, a Harris supporter who worked for Barack Obama.
For the elderly, to help people in the sandwich.
The anecdote about helping her mother put on her sweater and her final
the things that would concern me, and then she did one thing at the end that I thought was really important. The things that would concern me is when she doesn't want to answer a question, her habit is to kind of go to word salad city, and she did that on a couple of answers. One was on Israel. Anderson asked a direct question, would you be stronger on Israel than Trump? And there was a 7-minute answer, but none of it related to the question.
He's concerned, folks. You don't need me to tell you that. Just listen to the Democrats who support her. They're concerned. Hello there. Welcome. I want to tell you guys a story. It's a Rush Limbaugh story, indirectly. I'm doing a charitable event tonight, and I've never done anything like this before. I am carrying, so I have a very large humidor. It was actually a landmine crate from Vietnam. There's a company called Amadors that turns it into a humidor, turns like surplus military equipment into humidors. And I wanted something unique and saw it. And so my wife got it for me for my birthday a couple years ago. And it holds 700 cigars, and it is fully loaded. And sadly, I don't have cheap cigar tastes. But a buddy of mine, my favorite restaurant, said, would you help us do a fundraiser? We're raising money for a local nonprofit in our area that raises money to help kids who can't afford school supplies get their school supplies. I was like, sure, I'll do it. What do you have in mind? He says, how about cigars? Like, I got you. Well, one particular person gave a lot of money, and I have a box of Opus X cigars given to me by Rush Limbaugh when I very first filled in for him back in 2013. He, as a thank you gift, sent me this box of cigars. I have kept them as I have needed to keep them to preserve them, and I'm going to give one of them away. There aren't a lot left. I've smoked some over time. It pains me to give one away, but just as a reward, I got to. But so this particular box of cigars, Opus X from Rush Limbaugh. For several years, I refused to even unseal the box. It was in a sealed box with a humidity pack, and I put it in another bag with a humidity pack to preserve the cigars in a cool place. And I could not bring myself to open this box and smoke these cigars. And at some point, I moved stuff around, and it had come out of the bag that I had it in. It was still sealed up. My wife started complaining that I needed to throw all these cigar boxes I had away. So I'm like, yes, ma'am. So I round up all my boxes of cigars. They're all empty. And I throw them all away. 3 o'clock in the morning on a Friday, in the wintertime when it is cold, I wake wide awake in bed. And I think, oh my gosh, I've thrown away my box of cigars from Rush Limbaugh. And I bolted out of bed in the middle of the night, ran downstairs, ran outside in the freezing cold in my underwear, and rescued my box of Opus X cigars. And finally, that was my clue that I needed to open them. And I did, by the way. Rush was still alive when I told him this story. He fell out laughing. He says, dude, smoke your cigars. You're making enough money. Buy some more. So I'll give one away tonight. All right, I got to tell you about Vision Computers. I should probably be calling them about my tech support issues. But I want you, if you need a PC, I'm a Mac guy, and we've got a PC in our house for our son. But they do PCs. If you want a PC, Vision Computers can build you one, save you money, get you a better machine. It's going to be upgradable. It's going to last you longer than the one-size-fits-all big box store, and you get their 5-star customer support where, faster than Google search, you can get the answer to what's ailing your computer. All you do is call them at 404-COMPUTE or go to visioncomputers.com. Here's the thing, though. If you want their tech support, and you've already got a computer, but you need someone to help you with your computer. You can't afford downtime. You're an independent contractor. You're a small business. For just $179 a year per computer, they can be your tech support. You don't have to have bought your computer from Vision Computers, and they'll still help you. They can remote in, fix it, do virus support, email, printer, you name it. Call them at 404-COMPUTE. Tell them Eric sent you. You're going to save even more money. 404-COMPUTE or visioncomputers.com. 404-COMPUTE nationwide. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Eric Erickson here. Delighted to have you with me across America. I want to talk about the accidental senators. You've heard me use that term, and it's increasingly relevant today. In the United States Senate, there are races across the nation for the United States Senate. The Senate is designed so that a third of the Senate is up for re-election every 2 years. They're divided into 3 classes, going back to the founding of the United States and passage of the Constitution. Until the 1900s, senators were appointed by state legislatures. They are now directly elected. I would like to go back to gubernatorial nomination and legislative appointment, but that's probably not going to happen. We're Republicans right now. It's a 49-51 Senate. If the election were held today, there would be 51-48 Republican. Joe Manchin is leaving the United States Senate. That seat is guaranteed to be picked up by the Republicans, and that'll give us, from a 51-49 Senate, that will give us a 50-50 Senate. If Donald Trump wins, it becomes a Republican Senate. But John Tester appears to be losing in Montana. In fact, Democrats have now begun pulling money out of Montana and rerouting it to Ohio. So warning sign that the Democrats know they have lost Montana is the Democrats are pulling their money out of Montana. From the Daily Wire, video obtained by Fox News shows a Democrat operative tampering with an election ballot box in Montana, appearing to try tearing the box off the wall. The operative, Laszlo Gendler, had been paid by the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee, according to Open Secrets. As Montana Talks reported, the DSCC is attempting to help incumbent Democrat Senator John Tester against GOP senatorial candidate Tim Sheehy. Richie Melby, the communications director for Secretary of State Christy Jacobson, told Montana Talks, quote, "The Glacier County election administrator contacted our office expressing serious concern over surveillance footage that appeared to show an individual tampering with the ballot box. Our elections director contacted the elections administrator, who confirmed that the individual is Laszlo Gendler. The name of the suspect and details were turned over to Glacier County law enforcement." Things aren't going well for John Tester. You got Democrats trying to rip ballot drop boxes off the wall there. There are also now growing concerns over Sherrod Brown in Ohio. Those of you listening on WHIO in Ohio understand that Sherrod Brown voted with Joe Biden 100% of the time. Bernie Moreno would be a better pick. That race is now considered a toss-up. Here's where things get interesting. Follow the money. Democrats are now pouring money into Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. They've given up on Montana. They feel okay against Sam Brown in Nevada. He could be a sleeper race. Keep your eye on that one. Kerry Lake's not going to win in Arizona. But suddenly, Democrats are putting money into Maryland. Larry Hogan, popular former governor there. They're pouring money into Maryland all of a sudden. Democrats are, not Republicans. Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania have become very close. It's time to talk about the accidental senators. The year is 1980. Ronald Reagan is running against Jimmy Carter. And Jimmy Carter is leading the election. That's right. Let's not walk that back. Let's not misunderstand. Contrary to claims otherwise, the race was exceedingly close. All the way through the election, the race was pretty close. And then something happened in the last 2 weeks of the race. Gallup, October 17th, had Jimmy Carter 41, Ronald Reagan 40. ABC News came out and had it 45-42 Reagan. Gallup and Newsweek together produced the polls 44-43 Reagan. And then suddenly, Gallup came out with a poll the week before the election. It had Reagan going from 40% to 46% and Carter going from 41% to 43%. The momentum shifted to Ronald Reagan. And you could begin to see it. The final polls of the race were ABC News, Reagan 45, Carter 40. CBS News, Reagan 44, Carter 43, and Gallup 46-43. There was a shift in momentum in the race. And when a presidential race and a national race shifts, all of the momentum tends to go in the same direction. All of the momentum. Not just the presidential momentum, but fewer and fewer people begin to split tickets. And it started showing up in the Senate races. So in 1980, there were 58 senators, 58 Democrats, and 41 Republicans. 58 Democrats and 41 Republicans. In the last 2 weeks of that election in 1980, the race was very close for Reagan and Carter. But there was a palpable sense of momentum shifting. A palpable sense that the race was moving to the GOP. People kind of on the ground knew that this was happening, but they just assumed it was happening for Reagan. They just assumed the momentum was with Ronald Reagan. But in 1980, that was actually the race where people realized if the momentum is with the presidential candidate, the momentum trickles down. There are coattails there typically. You went from a 58-41 Democratic-controlled Senate to, for the first time since the 1940s, a Republican-controlled Senate, 53-46. 12 Democrats lost their reelections. Here's the thing. Pay attention to this, please. Hello, this is what you need to know. 12 Democrats lost their reelection to Republicans, and not a single one of them was losing the race 2 weeks before the election. Don Stewart lost to Jeremiah Denton in Alabama. Mike Gravel lost to Frank Murkowski in Alaska. Richard Stone lost to Paula Hawkins in Florida. Herman Talmadge lost to Mac Mattingly in Georgia. Frank Church lost to Steve Sims in Idaho. Birch Bayh lost to Dan Quayle in 1980 in Indiana. John Culver lost to Chuck Grassley. Yes, that Chuck Grassley in Iowa. John Durkin lost to Warren Rudman in New Hampshire. Jacob Javits lost to Al D'Amato in New York. Robert Buren Morgan lost to John Porter East in North Carolina. George McGovern lost to James Abner in South Dakota. Warren Magnuson lost to Slade Gorton in Washington. And Galen Nelson lost to Bob Caston in Wisconsin. They all lost. Now, Jacob Javits actually lost Al D'Amato in New York in the primary, and Al D'Amato was a Republican. Javits was as well. So 13 total switches, 12 of them Democrat. By the way, they're called the accidental senators, some of them. Paula Hawkins, Mac Mattingly, Jeremiah Denton, John Porter East, Slade Gorton. They were called accidental senators. They were all gone 6 years later. Their states swung back without Ronald Reagan on the ballot. Their states swung back to the Democrats. They served one term. Slade Gorton actually came back. He lost and then came back again. But in 1980, the momentum shifted in the last 2 weeks of the race so dramatically towards Ronald Reagan. All of these Democrats, let me give you the states again: Alabama, Alaska, Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Indiana, Iowa, New Hampshire, North Carolina, South Dakota, Washington, and Wisconsin. All those Democrats were ahead in the polls 2 weeks before their elections, and they all lost. It was a massive coattails election. Ronald Reagan got 489 electoral college votes. John Anderson, who had run to stop Reagan in the Republican primary and lost, ran as an independent. He was so convinced that Ronald Reagan was a dangerous man who would destroy the world and lead us to World War III. He ran, got a 0 electoral college votes, got 6.6%. Jimmy Carter won 6 states and the District of Columbia. That's it. Reagan carried 44 states. Now, I don't think Donald Trump is going to carry 44 states. I know the true believers are like, oh, he's going to win California. No, you're dumb. He's not. But the momentum has shifted to Donald Trump. Here are the last 3 media polls. Forbes, Trump up 2. CNBC, Trump up 2. Wall Street Journal, Trump up 3. It's a pretty interesting reversal because the last time they polled the race, the Wall Street Journal did, Harris was up 1. Forbes, the last time they polled the race, Harris was up 4. It seems like there's momentum headed in one direction. And when that momentum heads in one direction for a presidential candidate, that momentum tends to head in that direction down ballot. Let's go back to the beginning of this monologue. Democrats have pulled all their money out of Montana now. They've redirected it to Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania and Ohio. Bernie Moreno went from being behind to being tied and now slightly ahead. Larry Hogan in Maryland is giving the Democrats a run for their money. Democrats are starting to put money in there. You know, Sam Brown is one of my favorite candidates. He's the bird victim soldier. He was a captain in the military. We had him at the gathering. Super guy in Nevada. He's running behind the Democrat there pretty significantly. Nobody expects him to win. Suddenly, Donald Trump is ahead in the polling in Nevada. The momentum is headed in Donald Trump's direction in Nevada. It could happen. Guys, maybe Trump's peaked too soon. I don't think he has because the polling is starting to show this. The Democrats are clearly starting to panic. Everything is pointing towards the Democrats. Understand the race is beginning to slip away from them based on early voting patterns. Who's voting? When are they voting? Who's not voting? Why are they not voting? The panic has set in. They're back to he's going to be Hitler. Please stop him. He's going to be Hitler. Who will rid me of this meddlesome presidential candidate? They're wishing for an assassination attempt. We'll get into that at the top of the next hour. If the momentum has truly shifted Trump's direction, it has shifted not his direction, but the Republicans' direction. And there could be some surprises in just 12 days. There could also be surprises in the economy, the way things are headed. That's why Swiss America has been warning people about the secret war on cash. As more and more people are using cash, they want you to know about it. They are rated A+ by the Better Business Bureau, and they can educate you on protecting your assets. In their report, The Secret War on Cash, it takes less than 15 minutes to read. It can save you on your retirement and finances. If you want it, all you got to do is call or text 800-289-2646. That's 800-289-2646. Mention my name, Eric, E-R-I-C-K, when you call or text 800-289-2646. The all-out war on cash includes digital forms of currency, too. The government is trying to track what you're spending and where you're spending. They're trying to control you. Learn about the secret war on cash. Call or text my name, Eric, to 800-289-2646. 800-289-2646. The report is completely free from Swiss America. Message and data rates may apply. Those of you listening out on KRMG in Tulsa, Oklahoma, I'm headed out to see you guys 2 days after the election. We'll be out there. I would love to have you come hang out with us. You got to register for the event, though. You can't just show up. So if you go to krmg.com or go to the KRMG app, would love to have you out there. Looking forward to hitting the road, getting out to Oklahoma, one of the states I have not been to. I finally get to go to. Y'all know I've been to more countries than states. It's still kind of weird to me that that's the case, but we will add Oklahoma to the list of states. Now, technically, I've landed there once, but then took off again. I never actually left the airport, so I don't really count it. So I'm excited to head out there to Oklahoma. Looking forward to seeing you guys in Tulsa. Go to krmg.com or use the KRMG app to get it, to sign up, register, and also don't forget, if you text ARMY to 33777. You put in your name, email address, and zip code. I will be able to reach out to you as we're traveling around the country when I come to your area and say, hey, we're coming out there. Those of you in Las Vegas, I'll be out there with you guys the week after the election. I'll give you details on that when I can. We have a lot more that we've got to discuss on this program today. But before we do, I want to play my buddy Scott Jennings on all the whole Hitler nonsense and the talking points and all that. This is Scott Jennings from CNN. Well, it was. Let's see here.
He actually does have autocratic and dictatorial tendencies. He does want to sick the press and the military on his enemies. He'll do that even to Republicans. At what point do the Republicans say, you know what, for the sake of country over party, even though it's uncomfortable, even though it's something I may not, it makes me feel, it churns me up because I agree with the policy, this guy shouldn't be in office.
It probably will shock Kamala Harris and the rest of her campaign staff to learn that there are incumbent Democrat U.S. senators in this country right now running television ads touting all their work with this modern-day Hitler. I wonder if Kamala Harris tonight in our town hall meeting will call for them to take these ads off the air, touting their work with this Hitler. I mean, if he were really Hitler, if he were really a threat to democracy, not a single Democrat in this country would be running ads touting their work with Donald Trump. Now, I'm calloused on this Hitler business because I lived through the Bush years. And I used to peer out my window onto Pennsylvania Avenue, and I saw everybody marching around in their brown uniforms, signs up, Bush is Hitler, Bush is Hitler. And then they did it to John McCain. They did it to Mitt Romney. They've done it to Donald Trump. They even did it to Paul Ryan, I recall, at one point. So I've heard it all before. And I think the reason Democrats are freaking out about it right now is because what they have learned is that it's not Republicans who are the Hitlers or the Nazis. It's actually emanating from within their own party. If you want to find Hitlerish, Nazi-esque, anti-Semitic tendencies, look on the left, not the right.
But Scott, you're ducking the issue because this isn't Democrats outside saying
She
this about
literally spoke
Republicans.
in front of the Naval Observatory today.
This is the president,
Trump is Hitler.
the former president's chief of staff saying this about his boss.
It's her closing
Nobody is
argument.
closer. Everyone thinks that the vice president of the United States is deputy president.
So outraged. All they've got is to try to scare you now. There's no persuasion left in the Democratic Party, and I want to talk about that when we come back. They're not even trying to persuade you at this point. They're just trying to make you feel bad if you vote Republican. It's emotional manipulation from the Democrats.